Welcome back to the When I Heard This podcast. My name is Nate Robinsoff, and I'm here with Joseph Tillman. Joseph, it's a different podcast today this time.
It is.
We're doing more of this.
Yes, sir.
In the same place.
Same place.
Different time, but same place.
Same place.
Today, we are continuing to talk about pastors and how they have to live their lives and how that's different from us normal people. First off, go to Patreon, $5. Click all the buttons around the things. Like, subscribe, comment. You know the stuff. So we're going to be getting started with that right now. Okay, so what would you be worried that your church members would do if they found you out at a bar drinking, smoking, and watching and listening to porn?
Okay, well, I'm not going to do like any of those things. Like, can we be clear? Like, you're creating these hypothetical moments. They fire me. They rightfully should.
Would they?
Yes.
Okay.
I would hope.
You would hope?
I would actually hope they'd fire me.
Okay.
If they found me doing everything you just said, yeah. Like, if I'm, like, wasted in a bar watching porn, fire me.
But that's actually what would happen, though? If in that situation, like, there wouldn't be a, okay, well, we'll give you one more chance type of thing? But
I would have really low tolerance for that.
Right.
Yeah.
But also, okay, so cut the amount of offense in half, and you're not getting fired. What would you be worried about with your church members?
Well, I mean, how would they even receive my preaching anymore?
I don't know. Drunk?
So you're saying they'd have to be drunk to be able to accept what I was even saying going forward?
Just answer the question.
Yeah, no, I just, that's what I would, I mean, I think that would be the greatest obstacle. I think that is the greatest obstacle. I mean, if a pastor has just an outright moral failure like that, like where they're wasted, they're, caught watching porn, whatever, that becomes the most difficult part for me. Like, if that's public knowledge, right?
Right.
If that's public knowledge.
That's what I'm really asking.
Yeah. If that's public knowledge, and not that there can't be forgiveness, and not that there can't be reconciliation and those kind of things, but I think the pastor would have to show, like, your 2 Corinthians 7, like, deep, godly repentance. Where,
like, openly in front of everyone?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You'd have to repent before the whatever church government structure you have set up, whether it's a board or whether it's elders or deacons or however the particular church is set up. But there'd have to be repentance before them. There'd have to be repentance before the congregation. Like, you'd have to have repentance.
Okay.
And then I think there'd have to be a time of earning people's trust back.
How?
I think you'd have to meet with people, talk with people, be just upfront with, hey, this is what I did. I'm owning it. This is what I'm doing to ensure this doesn't happen again. And I think all that has to happen while you're not preaching on Sundays.
Okay.
So, like, I would think that pastor would have to be sat down and off the stage and off the platform, off of no, it couldn't be behind the pulpit.
You can get one of those days without an incident signs with the numbers that you can pull off, and you'd add a number every day.
Okay, I'll let you do that. And so, but I think that would have to. I mean, I think you'd have to earn people's trust back over time, and it's not going to happen overnight.
So that would not be fun.
Oh, no.
So that's why you don't do these things. And because you're a Christian.
I don't do these things because I'm a Christian.
Okay.
That's why I don't do them. It's because I'm a Christian.
Okay. So what's the worst time that you've ever heard of a pastor getting in trouble for something that he did that people didn't think was acting pastoral?
And and so this is not just like, I mean, obviously there's things like stealing money or
Who stole money?
adultery, things like that.
And you're aware of people that have done those things?
Yes.
And what happened?
Different things happen with different ones of them. So I mean, I know several.
Okay.
One example I know of where there was a pastor, lead pastor of a good sized church, and he was caught in an affair and also stealing money from the church. Okay,
To pay for his affair.
or to pay for whatever. Yeah, I mean, and so he was obviously sat down, and the church did not fire him immediately. The church, he seemed to be repentant, seemed to want to work on things with his wife, and wanted to seemed to want to have a chance to work through that. And so they were going to give him that opportunity. When they came before the congregation to kind of let the congregation know the steps forward that were going to be taken, the pastor kind of blindsided the leadership and said, "No, I refuse to, take a break. I refuse to go through these steps you've outlined." And he was trying to build a case before the congregation of why he should remain acting pastor, and it went over like a lead balloon. And so he ended up losing his job, and obviously they fired him on the spot. And
While he was in front of the church?
Yeah.
Really?
No, the leadership just pretty much just stood up and said, "You're done."
During service?
Well, this was like a special meeting.
Oh.
And the pastor was like, where they had set up this meeting with the church family, to the church body, to tell the church, "Hey, this is what's going to happen." And he was supposed to stand up and say, I repent. I'm sorry. Here's the processes I'm going to walk through with the church leadership and with some other help, counselors, to make sure my marriage is good, kids are okay, that kind of thing. And instead of doing that, he stood up and said, "Yes, these things happen, but I feel called by God to continue leading this church, and I will not go through this process."
And they fired him while he was standing up there.
They pretty much, yeah. It's pretty much over. And so that's happened. So
he lives in Alaska now.
He might as well. I know other individuals that had an affair and stepped away. They chose to step away from ministry for a while, come back into ministry after ensuring that their wife and their children were okay, and they're pastoring again. And I genuinely don't have a problem with that. If there's a genuineness in the repentance, and there were people that to help walk them through that process, and they're ensuring there's safeguards around their life to see that not happen again. And there's like a diligence there, and I think the biggest thing would like the spouse would have to really be okay with it. The spouse would have to feel like, we're okay, the family's okay, we're okay with you going back into ministry. I think it's a huge part of it.
How would you even get an affair started as a pastor? Like, don't most people not even
think about that? Or most of them, and I'm not saying all, most happen in counseling sessions.
In counseling sessions?
That because what happens
with their counselor?
Because the pastor,
okay,
a pastor is counseling someone, and so the dynamic would be, you've got a pastor who's compassionate, empathetic, trying to help someone who of the other gender, and so let's say it's a male pastor with a female, and the female has been through a divorce, or has experienced a loss and is going through a tough time, and and they form an emotional connection initially. Okay. And then it eventually can lead to a physical relationship.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and so like even in seminary and theology school, like it was just hammered over our heads to be careful with that situation. One of the things that we were actually advised was do not meet with someone for more than 3 sessions. If you're like, in other words, if I'm having to do counseling with a female, if I can't help them through their situation in 3 sessions or less, they need to go see a professional counselor.
Okay.
And it removes, because 1, you're probably not qualified to help them go all the way through that.
Okay.
And 2, it ensures that they're not going to form an emotional attachment to that pastor. And that pastor can form an emotional attachment to them because all of a sudden they feel valued and needed. And so it goes both ways. And so, there's a lot of safeguards about how to do that. I mean, my door, for example, in my study has a huge window on it. And it's so if anyone wants to walk by, look in, they can see in here and ensure that they know what's going on in here. I don't meet with women by myself, and if I do, it's in a very open, public type space. But I generally do not meet with women by myself, just to ensure that is. And it's not that I think every woman is looking to have an affair, right? Or is needy and is broken and emotional attachment will happen. It's not that. And I don't think every pastor needs to feel like that they're going to always be seen as a male who could possibly fall into, a sexual affair. I just think it's just a safeguard for both parties, and it helps. I think it honors the Lord and it honors them. There's the, do I think that, there's what's kind of called the Billy Graham rule.
Okay.
And the Billy Graham rule was never be alone with a woman by yourself, in a car, in an office. I think that can be taken like to an extreme. And where I do
How do you get married?
Right. I mean, so I do think that can be taken to an extreme, but I do think there's wisdom in some of the basic principles. And I just think that's, there should be safeguards and things like that set up. So,
has anyone ever thought that you were doing anything with a woman that you were meeting with? Or been like, why are you meeting with her with nobody else?
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
No.
Okay.
Not that I can think of.
Okay.
If they thought that, it's never been said to me.
Okay. Has that happened to other pastors that you know of?
Where someone assumed something might be happening? Actually, yes.
Okay.
It took me a little, yeah, actually, I know of someone, and they were accused of that, but it wasn't true. But yeah, they were accused of that.
How does that situation go?
What do you mean? Like
it's basically
he said, she said.
She said, yeah.
But a lot of times the other person will deny it too.
The person that,
like, in other words, like a lot of times it's not even just a he said, she said. It's like, let's say the minister and the person they're meeting with will both deny it, but someone else thinks, well, but I don't know. There seems to be something going on here.
Okay.
And I, and I'm not discounting people being concerned or this kind of things, but I think also we have to be willing to take people at their word as well,
right?
And not just assume the worst of every situation just because a minister is meeting with someone of the opposite gender.
Okay. So are you worried that your wife and kids could do anything to ruin your reputation as a pastor?
No, I'm not worried that they would do anything that would ruin my reputation as a pastor.
But would church members think that reflects on you?
Well, I'm sure some would.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure some would. So, if, for example, if one of our kids, began to, let's say, rebel in their teenage years and act out and those kind of things, would some people think that would reflect on me? Yeah, they probably would. And I personally wouldn't worry. Not that I'm not worried about what my child is going through, but I'm not worried about what other people are saying
Okay.
in regards to me as a pastor in relationship to my child rebelling.
So if your child came to church wearing all black and, like
going like full goth,
full goth,
right?
just full all the way goth, you would just be like,
he or she's coming in full goth.
That's my kid.
That's right.
Okay.
I'm not. I guess for me, I'm not willing to hold my kids to a standard that we're not going to hold every other child to. So any other kid walks in the church, they're wearing all goth. Okay, cool. And if one of our kids was to do that, all right. Right. And now the conversations that I'm having with my child or my children behind the scenes are just, that's what they are. They're conversations behind the scenes. And so as long as we're not just, as long as we're holding, like, so again, the example of the kids, all the kids of the church to the same standard, right? What are we expecting of all of the kids, not just Joseph's kids because he's the pastor?
Okay.
But what are we expecting of all of the kids? What are we, what do I want from, I'm looking at my wife and I'm saying, how is she as a godly wife, not how is she as a pastor's wife?
Okay.
I love one of the phrases so the pastor that did our premarital counseling asked my wife, the question is not, are you called to be a pastor's wife? The question is, are you called to be Joseph's wife?
Okay. And
we have really we've tried to, at least the best we can, live up to that. Now, were there times early on when we did a church plant that my wife would be more involved in things? Yeah. And was it because she was the pastor's wife? Yes. Some things had to be done, so she would just volunteer to do them. But it was not that it was expected of her. It's just that she saw a need. No one else was filling it, so she would fill it. And so I don't expect her to have to act or be different just because she's a pastor's wife. I just want her to be who God has called her to be, and I'm not worried about the optics.
Do your wife and kids ever deal with people thinking that they need to act better because they're your wife and kids?
Yeah, that's happened.
Why?
Again, I think some of it goes back to they expect the pastor to act a certain way. We talked about that earlier.
But what happened?
Oh, from my wife and kids?
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to not talk about my kids.
Okay.
And what happened with them. But as far as, so my wife at times, my wife is more quiet, more introverted. She's not one of those, get up front, rah, rah, rah personalities. And she's a very strong woman. But she at the same time is not a, be at the forefront of everything, needing to be or wanting to be, eyes on her. That's not her. She's incredibly happy and fulfilled and satisfied to do things behind the scenes where no one's looking, to, have families over or couples over to our house just to have dinner. She loves just making dinner and let's get to know people. She loves, talking to individuals, one-on-one or in little small groups. So it's not in these big settings where people are going to see that. And so there's times where people have wanted her to be something or someone she's not, or feel like, she needs to be more outgoing because she's the pastor's wife. That's just not her personality. I'm not going to ask her to change her personality. Is she friendly? Yeah, she's friendly. Is she Joseph? If we go into if we're at the fellowship hall and we're having a meal after church, I'm gonna talk to almost, I'm gonna say hey to a lot of people in there. And I won't say necessarily everybody, but I'm gonna make a touch point with about everybody in there. But I don't have to try. That's not forced. Like, that's energy for me. Like to be in a room, to talk to people, connect with people. I love that. Mm-hmm. That's natural for me. For Melanie, that she has to be very intentional to do that. Very kind of provoked in some way. Like, in other words, like I might have to say, hey, would you mind going and speaking to that person? Mm-hmm. And she's happy to do it. But that's just not her natural flow to just go and make sure she's reaching and connecting with everybody. She's more concerned with is, are our kids getting fed? Do they have food? And so maybe that will change to some degree as our kids get older. But right now it's like, are our kids okay? And then when she sits down with our kids, with whoever's around, she'll gladly interact and talk with them. But again, she's just not that outgoing, personality. And thank God, because if we had two outgoing personalities with me and her, oh Lord, it'd be a disaster. And so I thank God that she is wired the way she is. And so there's sometimes people want her to be more outgoing or more upfront or more vocal. And she just doesn't have a desire for that. She doesn't really have a desire to be in like church leadership. Mm-hmm. She's more than happy to be married to the pastor and just let me be part of church leadership. And not that I don't run things by her and talk with her about things, but she doesn't need some kind of official title or, hold some kind of official capacity or status. That's not what she's interested in. So.
Do you ever think about your house and your car and what people are seeing that you have as a pastor?
Sure. Yeah. Okay. There's a saying that, leaders live in glass houses. Mm-hmm. And I think that's
why they shouldn't throw rocks.
That's why people shouldn't throw rocks
right.
or break the house. But I think it's very true with pastors in particular, because I do think we live in a glass house. In other words, I do think that we live in a way that people are going to judge and to view us on the material things that we have or do not have. Presently it's a real different situation for us because we're living in a parsonage, which is a house provided by the church. So the church is actually providing our house. And we've never...
So they can just come in whenever they want and see what you're up to?
No, they're not. They cannot do that. And so...
it's not going to stop them from trying.
Yeah, they better not. All right. So, but, and we've never...
How's this house we tithe for? Huh? You enjoying living in here?
Yeah, that's part of it. And so, I think that, we don't have like flashy cars, or we don't have, we've never had like brand new cars, or we've never had, like we do have a minivan now, and when we bought it, it was 1 year old. That's like, the newest car we'd ever bought is only 1 year old, and now it is 10 years old. So it's got some miles on it. But yes, do people look at the way that the vehicles or the properties or whatever that pastors have? Yes. I think probably for us the biggest one has been vacations.
Okay.
And like we'll post on Facebook, hey, we're here at Disney World, and then you'll maybe get some comments, I saw you're at Disney World, and you can tell they're thinking, that really how you're gonna spend your money?
Oh, okay.
And one, if we chose to do that, okay, but then two, I think what people miss out on a lot is, for us, we've never had a lot, and my wife's a stay-at-home mom, and we've pretty much functioned she homeschools our kids, so we pretty much functioned with one salary family. We do fine. Like, I'm not complaining. Like, we do fine, but we're not going to do like massive extravagant trips. A lot because we can't afford them, generally speaking. And if we do a trip, then it's because we've saved up for it intentionally. And so, or we've been invited to go with family, that kind of thing. And so I think that that's probably been maybe the biggest one. And again, people don't always know all the ins and outs of those things. And so I try to be very careful with that too, to other people, of not judging them of how they're spending their money, because you don't know all the ins and outs. You don't know, hey, maybe a family member paid for them to go or asked them to go and told them, hey, we're going to pay for you to do this, that kind of thing. So I try to be very careful I want to be careful with how I'm looking at people and the way they're spending their money. But yeah, I do think, just as a general rule of thumb, leaders live in that glass house, and we just have to be okay with that.
So if you rolled up to church in a new Corvette,
okay,
and got out of it in slow motion with your Bible and flipped your suit jacket over your
right,
what would people think?
Wow, our pastor's really changed, and he is pretty full of himself.
And okay,
and if that was the way it happened, the way you described it, yeah I would be pretty full of myself.
Or I told you to do it.
And the Corvette was really just a rental car. Yeah. So, and I do think we need to be responsible as pastors of how we use money.
Why?
Because we need to. Again, it goes back to setting an example.
Okay.
We need to set an example to the church family of giving and of being good stewards with what the Lord has for us. And so I'm not going to get into specifics of you can have this or you cannot have that. Like, that's not for me to judge. Okay. In the sense of like, you kind of know extravagant when you see extravagant. Like some of the prosperity preachers' homes, right?
Right.
You're living in multi-million-dollar homes in a gated community somewhere. No. Just no. Get over yourself.
They don't live in a community.
They're isolated, and I just think that's. So I do think a little. Extravagance when you see extravagance, and I think we have to be pretty quick to call that out. To be honest with you, and to say that's not okay. But again, it gets dicey a little bit because it is relative to some degree of what is, and you kind of just have to know the culture and your environment and where you're in and what's seen as excessive and not excessive. I don't think pastors are called to be poor and walk around being poor. But I also do think by being a pastor, we have chosen to accept the fact that we're not going to have all of this money.
Are there church communities that where I, as a regular church member, would judge my pastor positively for having nice stuff?
Oh, sure.
Okay.
Yeah. So especially, and again, in the prosperity gospel type churches.
But not even in those churches.
Yeah. And
are there instances where I would feel proud that my pastor has nice stuff?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So there are some communities where that is the case.
Okay.
Where it's actually the fact that your pastor has a certain status.
Right.
Speaks well of the whole community and speaks well of the church.
Okay.
Yes, that absolutely exists. And I think that those pastors in those communities just need to be careful. And I think they need to teach biblical stewardship and responsibility to their church.
Do you think any of that's wrong?
To what specifically?
If I expected my pastor to have nice stuff, is that wrong of me?
Yeah, I would ask why.
I don't know.
Yeah, I'd ask why.
Because
now,
if he's doing the Lord's work, I should want him to have nice things.
Yeah. Okay.
Maybe, right?
Yeah. I mean, and I would say, okay, yeah, he's doing the Lord's work, so you want him to be blessed.
Right.
I know pastors who have been literally just gifted vehicles.
Okay.
I know that. Like, I very close friends with someone and literally was gifted a Lexus.
Really?
Someone just literally gave them a Lexus. Gave him a call one night, asked him to show up at a car lot, and there was a brand new Lexus for this pastor. And so, like, those things do happen. And so, but I also know that same pastor used broken down cars for the first 30 years of his ministry, and so, but so I don't want to sit here and judge and say, well, all right, now he needs to take that vehicle and sell it, and those kind of things. Like, I know for a fact he felt embarrassed by it because he didn't want to come across
right
as, oh, I've got this really nice car now.
Just drives through some dirt in it.
He actually had his wife drive it.
Oh,
and he had an okay car, at that point now, and so, but because he didn't want to pull up into churches that he was ministering in with this super nice car, he just didn't want it to come across as, again, that guy that's pulling up with the Corvette, throwing the jacket over his shoulder. He just didn't want to be that guy, and so I appreciate that. I appreciate his humility in that. So
you put a little sign in front of his space, reserved for the pastor's Lexus.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, but at the same time, he didn't want to dishonor the person that gave him the gift,
right?
And so he didn't want to just get rid of it and come across as unappreciative. And so, so that was what seemed best to him.
So much stuff to think about.
Yeah. That's
why we're doing this.
Yeah.
Have you ever been kicked out of places or situations because you're a pastor?
Kicked out? No. I can't think of anything.
Asked to leave?
Just because I'm a pastor?
Yeah. Or just not invited?
The not invited thing, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, like if people are, if people are going somewhere and they know they may be drinking or smoking, that kind of thing, then I'll hear maybe later about it, and they would kind of hear the comment of, well, but we didn't invite you. It wasn't personal. We just knew you as a pastor probably wouldn't want to be there.
Right. Okay.
And you're just kind of like, okay, cool. And I mean,
maybe I didn't.
I just got to roll with that, and so, that's happened before.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how do you feel when those things happen?
Like, I understand where they're coming from, but do you feel left out at times? Yes.
Okay.
And do you feel like, man, I really wish you knew, I wish you would have asked me about it beforehand.
Right.
Talk to me about it, or I wish you knew how I actually felt about it. That going around and sitting around, like sitting around a campfire and maybe everybody else is drinking but me, doesn't make me feel weird.
Okay.
Doesn't make me feel awkward. But at the same time, I understand if it makes them feel awkward, they don't want to invite me there.
Because you wouldn't be doing the same thing.
Yes, I wouldn't be doing the same thing. Or
Okay.
if they feel like I would not be condoning what they're doing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because the only way to condone it is to do it with them.
Right. And so those things have happened both with Christians and non-Christians.
Okay.
Yeah, and
is it different? Like, do non-Christians treat you differently than the Christians do about the stuff?
Sometimes.
Okay.
Sometimes the non-Christian actually can be more open. At times to inviting me to do things.
Okay.
Me saying, nah, I'm cool, I don't need a drink. And they're like, okay. And then kind of chalk it up, all right, he's a pastor, cool. And he's kind of keep going.
Okay.
Where I think maybe with church people, they feel more uncomfortable around it with me there. Where the non-Christian doesn't feel uncomfortable per se. They recognize and honor and respect the fact that I'm a pastor, but it's not going to change the way they're conducting themselves. And they're not going to see me on Sunday morning.
Right.
Right. And so I think that's kind of the dynamic there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you ever been invited to a thing where church members are going, or Christians are going to be doing those crossing the line potentially activities, and then you actually got upset by it?
Yeah. Have I been bothered or disappointed?
Yes.
Maybe. Disappointed would probably be a good word for it.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I have.
Okay.
Yes. So I mean, yeah, in fairness, yes, I've been disappointed at times.
Okay.
And a lot of these happen around like big events.
Okay.
So a wedding reception, something like that.
Gotcha. Okay.
And where people may start out, let's say social drinking, and then they're a little buzzed, and then they, and it kind of just keeps progressing.
Right.
And then they're saying things or doing things or acting in a way, and you're just like, oh man, like I was hoping for a little better for them, in them. And so, yeah, has there been moments where I've been disappointed? Yes. I won't say like a lot. Okay. But people that I thought would behave and act in a certain way. And then, you kind of have an expectation maybe of, or they normally generally do carry themselves in that certain way. And then for whatever reason, in this event, whether a wedding reception, New Year's Eve, whatever, right? Kind of a big event kind of thing. And you just and maybe just got away from them a little bit. I don't know. But yeah, that's happened some. Again, I'm not saying it's a lot, but it has happened some.
Well, you did my wedding, so now I'm wondering what you thought of that.
I did. I officiated your wedding.
All I remember is we were so busy. We were like, wait, we're supposed to be drinking more. This is our wedding. but we couldn't. We just kept having to talk to people
and shake hands.
Do all the things. And
right.
At the end of the night, we were just like, guess we'll just go to bed. Why am I sober? I have no idea.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. I mean, because I was there. Yeah. I mean, we ate good food.
Yeah.
And talked to some good people. And yeah, it was great.
It was normal.
Yeah. Way to go, Nate.
Stupid.
Way to be normal.
Way to be normal. Have you ever hidden the fact that you are a pastor to anyone?
Yes.
Liar.
Well, it usually doesn't
Ninth ring for you.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, wow. Dante's Inferno. Okay, so, but the, okay. So one of the, there's been a few times that this has happened.
Wow.
Okay. So one of them, so by hidden, I'm going to mean like they've asked what I've done and I just didn't give them the straight answer.
Okay.
Okay. And so there has been being on an airplane can be like the worst. And
go on.
And actually, I love flying. Okay, I actually really do. However, if you're on a 3, 5 hour, 10 hour, whatever flight is, and I'm going to another country. Most often, I'm going to these other countries to teach. Generally speaking,
teach like preach.
Sometimes preaching, like a lot of times, like there's one country I go to, and most often I'm teaching, either college courses or I'm teaching leadership courses, that kind of stuff I'm teaching. There's other times where I'm traveling, I'm going, and we're doing humanitarian type work, humanitarian aid type stuff. And so if I'm in a plane and I'm sitting about somebody I don't know, and they ask me what I do, I generally say, I'll generally say, well, in here, wherever I'm going, I'm teaching or I'm doing humanitarian aid, and kind of start getting into that a little bit. because what I have found is that on an airplane, and I'm sitting talking to somebody, if they find out I'm a pastor, sometimes that just shuts down the conversation immediately.
See, for some people, that would sound great.
Yeah.
Like if there was one thing I could say to get the person to shut up the entire time on a 5-hour airplane ride, I'd take it every time.
Right. But you know me, I like to talk. And so I'm like, to talk to the person, and they're just like, all of a sudden they found out I'm a pastor, and they're just like, whoop,
Yeah.
like wall just goes up, and that's it. And so they went from being a potential best friend to not wanting to talk to me anymore. And so so that happens. If I have, if I'm going into another country where proselytizing or sharing one's faith, what I mean by proselytizing, sharing one's faith is not acceptable, then I will say I'm coming here to teach. I'm a teacher.
Oh, so you're lying so you don't get put in a gulag.
Something like that.
Okay,
yeah.
I got you.
Like I almost got turned away one time going into a country.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Yeah. Like, I guess it makes for a cool story.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was like, the rest of my team was already through, but I'd been in this country several times. They saw the visa stamps and they were starting to get a little suspicious of me. And
like you were smuggling in Bibles?
Yeah, or something. Yeah. And so they were like
smuggling in Bibles with
yeah, or that I was going and sharing proselytizing or whatever. And so yeah, so that's happened before. So you just have to be mindful of it. There's other times where it doesn't get brought up initially. Like no one's asking, what do you do for a living? Or what, you're just talking. And I'm generally not just going to throw it out there.
Mm-hmm. As a pastor.
All right. So the best was, I was playing around in golf with my brother, and we were paired with 2 other people, and so the 4 of us were paired together, and so we're playing in golf, golf, and so we get pretty much at the we're making the turn, and we're going from the 9th to the 10th hole, and then one of them goes, so what do y'all do? And my brother tells him what he does, and I'm kind of busted at this point. I'm just like, I'm a pastor, and but preceding that, so the previous 9 holes, the other 2 people, man, they were obviously not Christians, just talking about everything under the sun, that cussing and talking about all kind of crazy stuff, and all this, they had showed us videos because they thought it was hilarious, and now all of a sudden, like, I dropped the pastor card on them, and seriously, they went from talking to us like nonstop for 9 holes for like an hour and a half, and all of a sudden, they'd make their shots, get in their cart, and drive away. That was like, they just almost didn't speak to us for the rest of the time. And my brother was like, well, that really changed things. And I'm like, yeah, it did. And so there's, and I hate that it's that way. Mm-hmm. I hate that, but whether they felt shame or whether they felt like, well, they don't really want to hear us talk. Well, whatever. I hate that it's that way, that it causes those kind of conversations to just end. But yeah.
Joseph, apparently we're not done talking about all these life things that you and other pastors that exist on the America world places have to deal with every day of their every single whole lives.
Wait, there's more questions?
There's more.
Oh, dear Lord.
Yeah.
All right, bring them.
Yeah, I sent you 34 questions because no one my entire life has ever answered any of these questions. Not once. So I had lots. Because pastors don't live in glass houses. They live in shady, dark ones in the middle of the woods that you can't see.
That's scary.
with ghosts and shit. And they never answer any questions ever.
Well, I'm glad we're
Never.
I'm glad we're going to get to remedy that today and last week.
Well, this has been the When I Heard This podcast. You can find the podcast everywhere that there's podcasts and YouTube and Rumble. You can follow updates on the podcast at When I Heard This podcast on Facebook and Instagram. Go to Patreon, $5. Click all the buttons around the things, like, subscribe, download the rest. You can follow me on Facebook and Instagram at Nate Robinsoff, and you can follow Joseph on Instagram at
RevJoeT.
This has been the When I Heard This podcast, and we will see you guys next time.
Bye.